Do you like money? If so, this is the podcast for you. Welcome to the Real Estate 401k Show with your hosts Ryan Gertis, Mike Weinstein, and Justin Frederick, helping you build a legacy of wealth through real estate. Powered by the Real Estate 401k Group at West USA and the Frederick team with Fairway Mortgage. NMLS number 625918.
Welcome back to the Real Estate 401k Show. I'm your host, Mike Weinstein. We are still down Justin Frederick, but we got Ryan Gertis in the house. So your mother-in-law sent us this topic, right?
Yeah,
it's a good one.
Yeah, so we call her Saint Anne. You know, there's a lot of people out there that don't like their in-laws. I love my in-laws. They're pretty badass. And, Anne is just one of those people that she stays very well informed, and she says some pretty outlandish things sometimes, but every now and then she comes through with some pretty interesting stuff, and she will never say something as a fact unless she knows that it's a fact. So,
and Anne, and if you're listening, I do appreciate the topic. Great subject as we get into real estate scams. But when you do send it over to Ryan, send the link rather than just the image.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there clicking on the picture of this article's not.
You know, we named a drink after her, right?
No.
It's called the Animal. So,
what's in it?
Well, so it's just vodka, soda, splash of cranberry. I'm sure everyone has had that drink before, or many of you have. But in our house, it's called the Animal. So
I like it.
Yeah, it's her drink of choice.
All right. Well, you're going to want to text the word "and" to 623. See what I did there?
Yeah.
Text the word "and" to 623 AZ Recon. That's "and" to 623 AZ Recon. Ryan, there's just a ton of scams in general out there, and if I ever became president of the United States, I would
ruin our country.
I would take strong action if you are scamming people. Like, to me, I would consider that a terrorist act, and I would go after you, and I would surgically strike your house. I don't care what country you're in. The amount of people that we know, especially the elderly, that have you ever seen the movie The Beekeeper?
Yeah. Jason Statham. Yeah.
I think of that. Problem is I'm no Jason Statham.
No, nor am I.
But there's a lot of real estate scams out there that are ripping people off. And the first one, and we wanted to highlight three of them. If you want the entire list of scams, we will send you the article. Again, all you got to do is text the word "and" to 623 AZ Recon. We always talk about the dangers for buyers buying without a real estate agent. Buyers that think they hey, I got ChatGPT, not a problem. I've got this. And we talk about so many dangers of it and so many areas where things can go wrong. But I hadn't thought about this one. Where probably, for a buyer that wants to be unrepresented, doesn't want to work with a real estate wealth manager, and where do they go? Obviously, they will go on Zillow and Realtor.com, and for the most part, that's a pretty safe place. But a lot of them are going on Craigslist, and it's not to say that there aren't fake listings on Zillow. And next thing you know, you could be inquiring about a property from a seller who doesn't even own the property, and they are setting up, consultation fees. We've seen it with vacant land, where people buy a piece of vacant land and it closes. Title company doesn't do their due diligence. Agents don't do their due diligence, and now the owner of the land has lost the land. The buyer has bought a property that they don't own, really.
Yeah. I mean, we had Bianca on here a few years ago, and I mean, that episode we got over 1 million hits on because she was discussing, how the frequency and the do's and the don'ts about vacant land, because that's probably the one that's most targeted because nobody's living there and nobody's monitoring it, or they're doing a very poor job of it more often than not. So the only thing that I will say that is going to kind of edit what you said is Zillow does have a ton of scamming listings on there.
Okay, fair enough.
They certainly do. Zillow is the Wikipedia of real estate, and I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way, because there is some good information on there as well. So if you are using Zillow as your only resource, then make sure that you are getting everything verified by trusted sources, not just some owner, because anybody can go put anything that they want to on Zillow. Most of the scams on there are from rentals, not necessarily properties for sale, but they are there for that as well. And it says Craigslist here, kind of antiquated. It's really more Facebook now. So the Facebook marketplace, you can, and then they have a bunch of closed Facebook groups. So if you're living in Ohio and you're thinking about relocating to Arizona, it's very common for people on Facebook to join a closed real estate Facebook group page, or rentals in Phoenix or rentals in Scottsdale. There's a closed Facebook group for everything, and they're not necessarily difficult to get on them. It's just private. So we see a ton of listings on there, and I see scam listings on there constantly. So the biggest red flag is if something is too good to be true, and it's on one of those types of sites, it most assuredly is. So if a home typically in the area, 5-bedroom, 4-bath, 4,000 square feet is typically going for a couple million, and they have it on there for 500,000, it's a scam. Okay, you didn't hit a jackpot and find some loser who's willing to give away the farm. They're going to take your 500,000, and then they're going to give you a bunk deed.
Well, and one of the things that the scammers are doing is with these fake listings, they're getting inquiries, and a potential renter or a potential buyer is interested for it. So they've got these systems in place where now they are providing the scammer with sensitive information, which is problem number one. And sometimes they're having to, pay for the services, some sort of administrative fee. And even if it's $200, $300, $400, these scammers, you're never going to find them, and you're never going to track them down. But that's a really good point. I hadn't really even thought about that as well. If you are an unrepresented buyer, a buyer who does not want to work with a real estate agent, and you are, whether it's even Realtor.com or Redfin or Facebook Marketplace, I still know people on Craigslist. I'm older than you.
That's right.
You don't know. And really, I think one of the only ways that you could know whether it is truly a legitimate listing is by talking to a real estate professional who has access to the MLS, because we have access. Our data is not compromised.
And if you're just like, you know what, Ryan, Mike, I don't give a damn what you're saying, I'm not going to call a real estate agent, I've been burned in the past, then okay, I'm not going to sit here and try to change your mind just off of this podcast here. Obviously, I would love to sit down and talk through it with you, but at the very least, go over to a trusted title company and talk to their escrow officer, because they need to issue what's called title insurance. And they cannot issue title insurance without verifying and authenticating the individuals on both sides of the table. So if there's a scammer that doesn't legitimately own that property and they're still trying to sell it to you for a song, then they're going to be able to say, hey, look, John Q or Jane Q, home buyer, the seller or the owner of this property is, Joseph Smith, not whoever this guy is over here. Then you'll at least have that as a safety net for you. The other big red flag for you is if they request funds to be delivered directly to them or to their business, it should always go directly to the title company so that they can make sure that the funds are secure and
that's the red flag right there.
Right.
If they're asking you to bypass escrow and bypass title with your funds,
then run.
Run.
All
right. Number two is, and this is a huge one, wire fraud and escrow scams. And so typically this is taking place after you have an accepted contract. And it's typically the buyers are the ones that are getting scammed. And they've put in their earnest money. We're going through the process of of the inspections and so forth. And then you start getting emails, especially when it's time to getting close to the close of escrow with your wiring instructions. And these scammers are so damn good at this. They'll have the title company logo on there, but the URL might be off just one letter, and if you just look at it, you wouldn't notice something is wrong. And they're getting this information, and they're sending out these emails, and these poor people prior to close are wiring 30, 40, 60. They're wiring their life savings, and it's going to some person in some other country. And this is a huge, to the point that real estate agents, a lot of brokerages require buyers to sign, disclosure saying, we've told you about wire scams.
Wire fraud is definitely a thing. So just to kind of spell it out for you, we use Fidelity Title. We're big advocates for them. They've been just nothing but amazing for us. And so what would happen is a buyer and a seller would go under contract, and then these scammers would start intercepting emails. And then they would say, oh, okay, this buyer's under contract for 123 West Main Street. And then they'll audit it and see what's happening with it. And then they'll say, okay, April 15th, this thing is closing. So they're probably going to be wiring funds on, the 12th or the 13th or something like that. And so they'll keep an eye on those emails that are going back and forth. And so they'll send over an email that will say, because they'll know that Bianca with Fidelity is the escrow officer, and that her email is bianca.lemons@fnc.com. Well, they'll put bianca.lemons@fncaz or .az or something like that .com. Like you said, change the URL code. And so it's just that small, tiny little change that is obviously a massive deal. And instead of sending over the wiring instructions for Fidelity, they're going to send over the wiring instruction for their offshore account. And then what it does is it immediately jumps from that account to another account to another account to another account. So within 30 seconds, it's gone to 10 different accounts, been completely withdrawn, and that money is never going to be recovered.
Well, I think that nowadays, like with Fidelity, Bianca's not even sending an email anymore saying these are the wiring instructions. Here's log into your portal, your secure portal, and the wiring instructions are there. So I'd say point number one, if you're receiving something directly from your title rep and it's just an email, you're not having to log in, you need to pick up the phone before you do anything, call the escrow officer, and don't call the phone number that's on that email, because they've already spoofed the email.
Right.
So they're going to spoof that phone number. You've got to go back, or you've got to talk to your real estate agent and make sure you get the correct phone number. But even if it's an online portal, I tell all my buyers, pick up the phone and call Bianca and just confirm that the notification was from her and confirm that the wiring instructions are accurate.
Yeah, sound off the account number and the routing number. And I don't know what it's like in your state, but if you're here in the greater Phoenix area, the phone number's right there on the contract. So it'll have all the title company information.
That's a good point.
And who and the what and the when and the where. Pick up the phone, verify the information, and then go over to your bank and wire.
All right, we have an entire list of scams, real estate scams to be wary of and to be on the lookout for. If you want to talk scams and you would like this full list, all you got to do is text the word ANN to 623-AZ-RECON. That's ANN to 623-AZ-RECON, or just type the word ANN in the comments section. And then the third one, and because we kind of just, this was a last minute thing, so I didn't have time to go do all my homework. But this was a big story over the last month, and so the names and the dates escape me. But we are seeing an uptick of people. We get the list every single month. We get the list of everybody in Maricopa County that is 30, 60, 90 days late on their mortgages. And that list keeps growing and growing and growing. And then every day we get notification of everybody that just received a notice of trustee sale the day before.
AKA foreclosure notice.
Foreclosure notice. And we're seeing that number pick up. So if we're getting that data, scammers are getting that data, and they are going after their foreclosure relief scams. And they are showing up to people's houses, knocking on their doors, saying, hey, understand that you're in foreclosure. We can help you stay out of foreclosure. We will negotiate with the bank. We'll do a loan modification on your behalf. It's not going to cost you that much money, and you get to stay in your house. Sounds great. Okay, well, I just need some personal information, and I need you to cut me a check for $495. What this guy was doing, he was showing up to people's doors with that same promise and having these poor people transfer ownership of the house to him. Now he had complete ownership of these houses with the promises, I'm just going to help you. I'm going to help you, keep the house. And he's getting in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Well, because I didn't even know a whole lot about that until we started talking about it, because there are a ton of people that are going through foreclosure that have equity in their homes.
Oh, God.
And a significant amount of equity. And so those, if you are getting somebody that's calling you up and saying, hey, look, I'm going to help you out, etc., I would be extremely cautious about having any conversation with them. If you have equity in your home and you are going through a rough time, can't make your payments, call up the bank directly.
Mm-hmm.
You have a mortgage statement. There's a phone number right there on it. Give them a call. And I mean, they don't want to foreclose on you. They don't. And so they'll talk about your options in-house, whether it is a loan modification or a forbearance or anything that might be available, because, there's hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of dollars in equity in some of these properties that are going into foreclosure. They're just kind of landed on rough times. Pride is a bitch, man. There's a lot of people that are willing to cut off their nose and spite their face. And so that being said, drop the pride. Make the phone call over to the mortgage company. If any of those options don't work for you, then chances are you're going to have to sell your property to not only avoid foreclosure, but to reap the benefits of the equity in your property. So I would say, unless they have the credentials as a licensed agent, but because nobody from the bank is going to come knocking on your door. Nobody. If they are delivering a notice of trustee sale, it's just a courier that they've hired to go over there and post it on your window or on your door. They're not going to knock on your door and try to give you options and solutions on how to avoid it. That's going to be a third party that stands to make money on it, and that's okay. There are some legitimate outfits out there that are truly trying to help people,
mm-hmm.
and that can and do, but you need to verify, particularly before you start cutting checks. And for God's sake, don't sign anything until you know exactly what's going on. You've talked to the bank, and you know exactly what's in front of you.
Yeah, and that's really the ultimate point. Talk to the bank. Don't go on these companies' websites. Don't give them any money.
Any of your information.
Because to your point, they can't negotiate a loan modification. We can show you how to do it, and we can tell you how to do it, but the bank wants to negotiate with that homeowner. So be very wary. But
to your point, just kind of piggyback on that, we've helped a ton of people through loan modifications, and you know what that looks like? That looks like me picking up the phone, calling the number on the mortgage statement, conference calling you on the phone or putting it on speaker, and having that conversation directly with the bank while you're on the phone, and going over the options in live time with them, so that you can make your own decisions for what's best for you.
All right. If you'd like the entire list of real estate scams to look out for, or if you or someone you know is behind on their mortgage payments, maybe facing foreclosure, and just need some guidance on what to do. Because again, you got to explore your options, Ryan. It's heartbreaking the amount of people that just have experienced so much shame and so much embarrassment. They let their house go to foreclosure, and had they just sold the property, they'd have put $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 in your pocket. And we would love to go over those options with you. All you got to do is text the word "and" to 623 AZ Recon. That's "and" to 623 AZ Recon.